afternoon. It's Shirley with Spirit of Matter, and this is an episode dedicated to the relations between outer planets to inner planets. I did something like that when I talked about Venus, and this is Venus Day, but my hair is just weird today. Anyway, yeah, that's the Twitter post that sparked it. Saying that outer planets are only felt, something that I say a lot, when they contact inner planets. And this is something I very much agree with. When I talk about outer planets, we talk about Pluto, Uranus, Neptune, and Aries. Okay, Aries is also an outer planet. Although people see it as an asteroid, if you don't see Pluto as an asteroid, I don't see a reason to see Lilith. Lilith is a point. I need to talk about Lilith, I guess. To see Aries as an asteroid. Nou ja, Venus Day, Moon Hour. Moon in the 24th degree of Scorpio. So this is already the lunar mansion, I think the 19th lunar mansion, and the moon is separating from a square to Uranus. So we have Venus applying to tightly square Uranus. The moon is separating from an opposition to Uranus and a square to Venus and Mars. Venus conjuncted Lilith, and now she's separating from a conjunction with Lilith. The ascendant is in Leo. And it's very interesting that I should speak about Moon applying to Uranus. And now I'm talking about the relation between outer planets to inner planets, because of the personal planets, the Moon will be the first to trigger any aspect that you have, natally and in transit. And even in terms of, I guess, some life areas. Okay, when the moon goes over something, you feel it. Okay, perhaps with zodiac releasing, it's not like that. But other than that, when the moon goes over something, you feel it. Right now, the moon is opposing Uranus. I'm talking about the astrology Uranus of outer planets, Uranus, to inner planets, Moon, Venus, Mars. Okay, so and the moon is also trine in Neptune and sextile in Pluto. So, outer planets to inner planets. And what made me press record, and this is something that I like to talk about, was my response, my Twitter response. And my response to this conversation, other than I fully agree, because it tells you the people who don't have these outer planets to inner planets aspects in their life, when it's not mundane, like right now, when we have Uranus with Venus and Mars, but if it's not touching any of your personal planets or triggered by it, you kind of you might not even watch the news. Or you're going to watch the news and you're going to see something in the news. Yep, it's not going to touch on you. But when you have these aspects, you are the news. Okay? You are the news. And the people who are the news, the people who are the event of these transits, they know who they are. Okay? On a non-traumatic level, if you have a certain, I was even thinking about certain talismans that we had. I recently found, I used it as a blanket yesterday. I recently found this skirt. I gotta show you because it's this skirt. You don't see it. If you look down here, you just look to the fabric. I don't think you can see it, but it kind of looks like the wings of a peacock, with other colors. And I was thinking about ordering a certain magical work. It's beyond talismanic. It's not a single planet or a single yoga, but the Tema Mundi chart, which is the chart that birthed the universe on a spiritual level, or it's kind of like a myth around this chart. where all the planets are in their home sign. And Caitlin Kappa did a whole work that basically brings this chart into life. And I was thinking about the fact that, beyond me buying some, cream or oil or tincture, there is something about this spiritually that I'm one of the people who were drawn to be attracted to it. Now, Caitlin has Uranus and Saturn in Sagittarius conjunct, and if I'm not mistaken, it was on around either the anaretic degree or around it. Now I have the midheaven in 26 Sagittarius with Neptune in 1 degrees Capricorn. Okay, and usually what happens with my videos, I record when the ascendant is on Sagittarius, and I publish when it's on Neptune. Here is applying to Neptune, or with the midheaven is applying to Neptune. And so having the midheaven next to somebody's outer planet that triggers it, it's kind of like, oh, I'm one of the people who got the calling to use this Tema Mundi thingy. Okay. And that is not, I wanted to give something that is not a terror attack, a Me Too story or whatnot, because those are there. And I want to also give you a good example. It doesn't have to be a terror attack. Sometimes you are the news. Sometimes you are the person that's being called to do something that matters for the spirit of the time. Okay? I have this a lot with Aries. I'm called to talk about Aries with you. Astrology. If you're an astrologer, Uranus and Neptune rule astrology. Okay, for me, I have Uranus in the 10th house in conjunct in my luminaries. And so in order to tend to my emotional upheaval and my relational traumas, I didn't find any resort in the medicines, in the psychology, in the psychiatry and all of that. And I was like, this is kind of creepy. And even in shamanistic healing, when they're like, somebody violated your boundaries, you need to learn how to say no. Okay, that's like, some of it is true, but it's kind of creepy. And astrology was much more well-performing for me for managing my own my own luminaries. Much more well-performing for me to understand the spirit of the zeitgeist. So Neptune it's in my 11th house, is the closest to my midheaven. Okay, so if you talk about it, when I saw Viktor Frankl's chart, and I remember, I worked in in a credit card company, and we had the marketing section. They taught us the Maslow pyramid, and I'm not saying that Maslow's pyramid is not right, but I felt that for me, the Maslow pyramid is upside down, and it was only until I discovered it was upside down for a little while. Okay, it was upside down for a little while. Yeah, it does matter that I have food. Yeah, it does matter that I'll have land. But at that time, I felt like, for me, the Maslow pyramid is upside down. I need a sense of meaning and purpose so that I will even want to live. And for Viktor Frankl, he also had Neptune very tightly associated with his midheaven, but it was also associated with the ruler of his 7th. And he survived the Second World War, including Holocaust, by this longing to the eternal and having a sense of meaning in life that is beyond life. It's something that I very much relate to. Okay, so you can see how a person that is triggered by an event, is triggered by the outer planets, they are the news. And what you go through personally when you have this, and this is very important, I reiterate it over and over again, but now with Venus Day, it's Venus Day, Uranus is ruled by Venus, Jupiter is ruled by Venus, and Venus is squaring Uranus. So we're going to have a lot of people who pay attention to things. Okay? And Venus-Uranus square, it can mean you wear something unusual. It can be as simple as that. You sing something, Tom Waits, released a song called Watch Her Disappear, so a song about a woman disappearing. Um, and Uranus, of course, conjuncts Lilith, which gives it an even bigger meaning of female empowerment, but also women taking their place in the world in some unusual way. The instinct can be a bit rage, okay, feminine rage. Feminine does not necessarily mean the woman does not have a penis. And with Venus applying to Mars here, the woman may definitely have a penis. If Mars is penis. So, and she trines Lilith, and she trines Aries, and that means Lilith trining Aries. Okay, a lot of these voices operating. So you might see it in the news, but it may as well be that it triggers certain aspects of you, certain parts of you, okay, that were not represented. And now you have an unusual way of bringing them into being. And that is, you might have a sudden urge to do something. And it can be something small and simple, but it does mean you're part of a certain zeitgeist. Okay, when Uranus crossed my sun, I was literally doing an active rebellion concerning public transportation, concerning inflation, concerning like many things. Okay, the way that I was running my daily routine was an act of rebellion, and I held one. I remember particularly that I was very mad. I held the crystal that was a rose quartz crystal in my hand, and it looks like I'm holding a stone and I'm about to throw it at someone, but it was a rose quartz crystal. So I wouldn't throw rose quartz crystal at anyone. I mean, this shit is expensive and it's very good energy. But it was kind of like this act of rebellion that is also an artistic expression of something. It's like instead of throwing stones, we hold this a crystal that has love energies, or we want to make a change with love rather than with throwing stones. And that was a part of the passage of the moon crossing my sun, okay, of the Uranus now crossing my sun. You are the rebel. You might not, they might not broadcast you in the news, but you are the rebel. You might not even look for them to broadcast you in the news. When you do there are some things you do that you don't want to, it's funny because when I'm thinking about, I said, when I was thinking about Caitlin, then one of the things that really bothered her was that people take the credit for creation. And that's very true. Like you want your own credit. And I was thinking about it from my vantage point when I was doing, like sugar-free lemonade or whatnot. And we were like, let somebody else take that name, let somebody else take that fire. But it was not happening. We took that fire. So you think about credit and you think about being credited. We all want to be accredited for our achievements, but sometimes your legacy is such that you're like, let somebody else do it. And that was surprising to me too, because I would not be expecting, I never wrote on a pseudonym, even if I would write on a nickname like Sister Spooky or whatnot. It was not so that I will not be associated. It was just like, it was a stage name not to hide my identity, but to express a part of my identity. I was an X-Files fan, so I called myself Sister Spooky. I was writing screenplays, so eventually I won, the movie that I wrote won an award in LA Film Festival, and I was written as Sister Spooky. Right? It's not smart, or maybe it is, I don't know. So, but all in all, it's not like I didn't want to be accredited. But when it came to what I actually did for the world, I was like, can somebody else take that? Because it's the type of things that to have your name on it kind of brings all kinds of parties into the conversation that you might not like desire to have in your life, like your ex-psychologist maybe not watching your YouTube video or something, So yeah, more about outer planets to inner planets. And yes, I will also say this, so not to gaslight you, it is also the difference between being a part of a terror attack and or being a terrorist and watching a terror attack on the news. Okay, or if you're American, then replace terror attack with mass shooting. It's the same thing. Um, and you know that when that outer planet meets your inner planet, and unfortunately Uranus with Mars, they were signals of, a gun could go off there. I don't even know what happened. Like, it was such difficult times for me. I was just icing my entire body that I don't even know what happened. Okay. Outside of myself, I don't know what happened. I was just trying to get a hold of me there. Um, and now Venus is applying to this, to this degree. So yeah. Um, Lilith as well. With stuff like asteroids, it's the same, or points, it's the same. Fixed stars, it's the same. Okay, if you have something, if you have the moon next to Spica, you're gonna express Spica. If you have anything with Algol, you better learn about astrological magic. And if you need to change something in your behavior, then attend to it or ask for the gods to help you, or for your unconscious child, whatever you believe in, because that is something that magically can work very well for you. She's very protective, but mundanely, we know that Algol is associated with things that are not so pleasant, and Uranus is approaching Algol here. Mercury is about to go Kazimi, so Mercury is applying to the Sun in Cancer. Here it is in the 12th house. Moon ruling the 12th house here, in the 4th house. So, but projecting on the 10th, with Venus and Mars on the ascendant and Lilith on the ascendant, not quite on the ascendant, but in the first house. Yeah, the moon is sextile in Pluto. The moon is sextile in Pluto retrograde. It's more like internal reflections, or just some sort of rethinking of things. The moon trining Neptune, so people want to be more artistic, perhaps. Or if you have certain, but it's actually a trine, so I'm less concerned about addictions, though it can happen. More about, not concerned. Like, I'm not so concerned. It's just more artistic, or spiritual joy. Jupiter sextiles the Sun and sextiles Mercury. This is a very beautiful aspect. If you're able to have harmony between your personality and your beliefs, your communication and your philosophy, theory and applied science, and to reach certain insights that are mainly good for you. You might not be able to communicate them right at the spot because Mercury is so close to a luminary, is receiving an update. But this update is going to be with sextile of Jupiter, which I love. Now that the Venus Lilith squaring Uranus. Well, I'm gonna show something. Well, there was, in the recent days, there was this YouTube, not YouTube, Twitter trend of somebody wrote, you are less attractive in your 35 than you are in 25. I'm in 39, so maybe, yeah. But you are less attractive in 35 than you are in 25. And then there were all these, women kind of showing pictures of them in 25 and 35, and of course they were more attractive in 35 mostly, because the more you grow, the more you are comfortable with your body, the more you are comfortable with your sexuality, and then of course you're more attractive. Okay, I'm just sitting here hibernated and caring about other things than being attractive to you, at this moment in time. Maybe that's just what gives the hots to someone, but maybe if they're my person, if that's the case. But the thing is that that's just a thing where there was kind of a women rebelling, but around sexuality. Okay, women rebelling, showing that yeah, I'm 35. I'm, needless to say, way sexier than I was in 25, because I know what I want, and you know it shows on me. I'm more comfortable in my skin when I'm being sexual, and this is the Venus Lilith conjunction. Okay, Venus Lilith conjunction is really about being more open, more vulnerable, but also more shining your light in a way, and it is about caring to be attractive. So this is a time where people can try to pamper themselves, but it's caring to be attractive, not so that you will, not in a way that you're going to do something in bed that you're not agreeing with. So it's a very favorable aspect when I think about it. It's kind of like you care to be attractive because you want to be satisfied. Okay, and here is satisfied emotionally because it's a luminary. Okay, the eyes. Then Shen, the heart. Leo rules the heart. You care to be emotionally satisfied, but with Lilith, you care to be emotionally satisfied also in bed. Okay, for me that's the usual, so I don't see anything, you know. I don't. But it can be a time where women care a lot about, or people care a lot about their emotional satisfaction in bed. So it can be actually very romantic and very satisfying. And then you find out what makes a person emotionally satisfied. With Leo, it's appreciating for your ego. It basically want to be appreciated, and that opens up the heart. But Lilith can give a more physical manifestation to this together with Venus. It's like there's something that matters to you, there's some specific fantasy that shows you that he loves you or that she loves you. And that can have both pros and cons. The pros is like you know what you want, you feel entitled in the good sense to receive it, not entitled as somebody owes you something, but more like yeah, I mean, entitlement is not necessarily a bad thing. Okay, we're entitled to be respected. Okay? As long as we don't do something drastic that violates that, we're entitled to respect. It's not, a terrible thing. But the con can be that if he doesn't do this like this, or she doesn't do this like this, then she doesn't love me, and that can be an open gate for manipulation, an open gate for misunderstanding and communication. But it's far better in the sense to understand this is my love language, this is how it manifests in bed, and this is something that is important to me. Okay, it's not something that you can compromise on, whether you're a penis person or a vagina person. It's not something you can compromise on in my relation. So you can find out what that thing is. Now it can be transient, and you need to take this into account. But even if it's transient, sometimes it is very important. So if you're non-monogamous, perhaps you desire to meet this need with the person or people that can meet that need. So that's a good time. And with Uranus square, there can be an act of rebellion. Okay, it can be some sexual revolution, basically, a little bit of sexual revolution. It's a transient effect, okay? With Lilith, perhaps a bit longer, but it's a transient effect. And there is the trine to Aries. So maybe transsexuality, or because Aries has to do with the gender as well, and Uranus too. So transgender sexuality, or transgender women finding out it's like, hey, it's other than the person just sleeping with me fetish, I also want to be satisfied here. And it's like I'm not your fetish. I want you to also like the person that I am, regardless of whether I have a penis or not. And I want you to appreciate that I have, let's say, a penis or whatnot. Um, and to have that be attractive sexually. So that is, it can also be like sexual fantasies about transgender people and the joy of display with woman and man in particularly in relationships in bed, performing arts, high time for drug shows, but queer art is beyond drug. Yeah, like, can we honor that? Anything queer, anything LGBTQ, it's both drag shows, but it's not just, drugs are mostly straight men dressing as women, which is LGBTQ, it's pro LGBTQ, uh, but it's not the whole story. And here we have more of the whole story. Here, more of the various genders and sexes, and the combinations of genders and sexes coming into alignment that is, that has conflict, but it's also has harmony. Okay, there's a harmony with Aries, and there's a conflict with Uranus. So the misrepresented sexualities can arise. Um, we're asked to be very accurate about the acting out versus the fantasy of things. Um, and the moon is triggering it right now. Okay, so this could be for you the difference between being on the news, or if you have personal planets that contact this aspect particularly. You have Mercury is the ruler of my seventh and fourth. Um, then you may have, certain events that are more personal to you. Um, those are the things that come into mind. And since I don't want it to get Saturn hour, I just wanted to clarify this point of outer planets. And also for you, if you're learning astrology, okay, you're in astrologists say, we don't need the outer planets. Okay, check their chart. It can be the case that they don't have outer planets to inner planets harsh aspects, that or they have harsh aspects that they're not dealing with, which is very okay, and they prefer to work with the traditional view. Okay, that's also very okay. um I have a mystic rectangle, two of them actually, if you counting Juno, and the Juno one involves the Neptune and Pluto. I have all the outer planets aspect in my inner planets. Okay, Pluto with opposing Venus and Mercury, Neptune squaring the ascendant and trining Mercury together with the midheaven, conjuncting the midheaven. Okay, Uranus in conjuncting both my Lord. I thought Uranus does nothing in my chart, and I was wondering why I feel so rebellious and have relationships that are revolutionary, that are unusual, and usually there would be a revolting act of both parties around them. And Uranus in conjunct both, it's a separating aspect, but it in conjuncts both my luminaries. Okay, so, and it's in my 10th house, and it squares my Palasatina. But that is something that is going to be evident in my readings. Okay, if some outer planets to inner planets are going to pop up, I'm going to be the one paying attention to them, because I'm going to locate how you are a part of the grand scheme of things. Okay, how you are a part, how you are the news. For some people, that can be to do with legacy, but again, sometimes this legacy is unchosen. I spoke in another video where I learned screenwriting. I learned, self-taught how to sing. I learned how to move, how to dance, how to this, how to that, filmmaking, all these things, and even some of the sciences. So I have stuff to write about, and how to paint to some degree. And eventually, my legacy had nothing to do with that. Like it had nothing, yeah, I wrote some stuff, yeah, I achieved some stuff, but eventually what I'll be most known at in my communities is that, oh, that's that person that talked about like those really taboo things that happen in very intimate cases and relationships, and exposed ups and red flags and what to do and what this and what that. And some people will remember me as the person that, brought them information that was life-saving. There's nothing artistic. Sometimes I didn't even, like, I was quoting the sources, but it's not even like my information, or particularly my insight, unless it was very personal cases where I was speaking with a friend that was going through something, but um, it's like that's what I will be known for. Okay, so it's my contribution to basically somewhat life-saving, rather than what I painted or what I did, and those things are currently more leisure. It's not that I'm against being known for my art or having legacy around my art. Neptune supports that. Uranus definitely supports that. But it's just the way things go, because the outer planets have a mind of their own around things. Okay, and to connect the art with what you're doing is pretty much the stage I'm in right now. And that, you could say, you could argue that it may have started with satire or with Sugar for Lemonade. Unexpectedly, I was just trying to heal myself, and so I wrote all this satire was coming out of me. And it's kind of like a shamanistic role, or a more like a yoga or something like that. It's not cultural appropriation, meaning it's like you guys don't care about these shamans, one shaman, and if they are being trained and they are being hurt in training or violated in training, like, who's gonna know? Okay, so don't talk to me about cultural appropriation. Talk to me about the algorithm that can care for these shamans. That we have one shaman in the village or one two-spirit person in the village. How do you make sure that their trainer is not sexually violating them or violating them? Okay, talk to me about these things before you talk to me about cultural appropriation. I don't want to pull up your ancestry to you. So anyway, because it's not how you use ancestry. But it's not like we don't know who our ancestors are. Okay, when somebody tells you I'm two-spirit, they may be two-spirit. Anyway, so yeah, we have here the midheaven on the nodes. So this is the chart for today. Do we have time to take a look at the lunar mansion before it goes Saturn? 33 minutes. Okay, so let's go. That's the site I really like about lunar mansions. And I like to check the lunar mansion of today. Sklepsis open here. Dmitry Utkin, let's shut it down. I wanted to do his chart. I actually recorded an episode, but I did not release it for various reasons. And I noticed myself dissociating as I was recording that, so this is obviously not a good sign that I should release something. And this is, the lunar mansion is 19th, because it goes from 21 Scorpio to 4 degrees Sagittarius, and it's called Al-Shaula. Al-Shaula, or the scorpion's tail. Okay, the stinger. So this is, the site is called magicandmastery.com. So lunar mansion 19, they take all the resources and kind of bring them all together, which I love. It's nicknamed the Stinger. When the moon is here, it's auspicious time for discernment. Okay, this is a good time to make this episode. If you need to make a choice, it's a good time to find wise solutions. Take a stand on what's important for you. Be assertive. Focus on win-win scenarios. Okay, so this is when I have Mars retrograde in 22 degrees. So 22 degrees, the degree of to kill or be killed. But Mars in here is want to do win-win. Is wanting to do win-win. And that is something that I felt in my life. There's a desire to go for win-win. Don't worry about the small things or be aggressive or overbearing. So they don't have yet a spell for the lunar mansion. And here is some Albiruni. The 11th century, Al-Shaula, the sting of the Scorpios, which is turned towards over the joints of the tail, 2 stars bright but not large, separated about a span from each other. Okay, that's all he said about this. Aben Ragel, in Indian astrology, good for besieging towns and encampment, so good for doing a holocaust, for disputing against enemies, for making a journey, so it's good to travel. For sowing and planting trees. So plant a tree today if you can. Bad for entrusting something to somebody. Okay, so if you are, traveling, or you're at the beach or something, and you want to say, "Oh, can you keep an eye on that?" and don't do this today. If a man gets married, he will find her not to be a virgin. Um, Bad for voyages which end up in shipwrecks. Bad for voyages which also shipwrecks. Okay, so this is dangerous time for sea travelers. For partnerships which will be discordant. So it's not a good time to. It's not a good time to make the important conversation that you need with your partner to now, because you will have discord and more discord than you actually planned. For selling slaves, and very bad for captive. Okay, so this say, okay, this is a good time for besiegement, very bad for captives. You have to always think about these things as a game that is in game theory. It's not a one-time game. Okay, you also need to know this about murder. Okay, people, you don't know what happens after, and people take it, you get to take it into account. Just the way I was channeling the freeze. If I cross over, if I have something to say, something helpful to people, I'll probably say it. Okay, so you much better. This is why Mars here wants to go for the win-win situation. Okay, so yes, it's good time for besiegement. Sometimes that's something that needs to be done. It's very bad for captive, and this is actually a problem for each side of the captivity, and it's something that needs to be taken into account. Yeah, so from Picatrix, 11th century. The 19th mention is Axaula, and this is for hurrying the menses of women. So this is for healing the menstruation. When the moon has passed around this mention, fashioned from brass, which is down forth in a certain manner, drawn forth in a certain manner, a seal in which sculpt the image of a woman holding her hands before her face. It's doing like this. Sense it with liquid storax and said, "You, Anusel, cause the blood to flow from such and such woman, and name her here. And it shall be as you asked. If a woman keeps this image tied to her waist, keep her happily and without danger of pregnancy. And know that Anusel is the name of the Lord of this mansion." Okay, so they basically use bringing the menstrual blood faster for the belief that you can't get pregnant. Now we both know that you can get pregnant on your menstruation, depending on when you ovulate. If you ovulate during your menstruation, you can get pregnant. And this is something that not many people know. People did get pregnant during menstruation. It's very rare, but it's not impossible. And we care more about willing consent here than anything else, because if a woman did not want to fall pregnant, then there would be ways to, like, there were condom-like things since antiquity. So the issue here is more about rape. I don't know if it's protection from rape, because here it does with the menstruation, so she will not be pregnant from the rape or from the sex. But yeah, that's all I know about this. And of course, it was written by what we know as men, so, or people with penises at least. So difficult to find, like, the information that's relevant to a woman. From Henry Cornelius Agrippa, Alata Akala Hikula Axela, the tale of the Scorpio. Helps besieging and taking of cities, driving people from positions, destroy sailors and captivities, facilitating birth and provoking menstruation. A woman holding her hands upon her face. Okay, this is the talisman that you need to make if you want to use this in that way. I don't know if it works, but you might try. From Vivian Robson, Al Shaula Lambda Shaula with Epsilon Scorpius Lesat the Sting helps in besieging cities, taking towns, driving men from their places, destruction of the seamen and captives with moon here, buy cattle, hunt but do not marry. Okay, if you need to buy cattle today. Or perhaps buying meat, I don't know. From Peter Stockinger. El Shaula, the tale of the Scorpio, favorable for hunting, curing menstrual disorders, and personal ideas. So here we already 21st century is kind of taking a look at menstruation. So I don't know if it is supposed to work for stuff like endo, or flow of the menstruation, or the cycle of, or a post-vaccine. Okay, post-vaccine menstrual disorders. I don't know. Okay, so make a talisman for general luck, to facilitate birth and to protect from dangerous energies. So this is protection from dangerous energies. Um, Interesting. So a woman holding her face like this with protection. When I'm doing this, I'm getting a no from my womb. So it's like constricting. Yeah. So you don't want to cover up your eyes, but that's the talisman. So let's see. From Christopher Warnock. Mention indicates that we must be steady and assertive to attain our goals and may need to be confrontational. Um, it can signal the onset of argument and conflict and warn us that we are behaving in manner too aggressive or argumentative. On a more subtle level, this mention can indicate a need to acknowledge the normal ebb and flow of events. This mention provokes a feeling of loss and sadness, feelings that are inevitable in life, but which we would avoid given a choice. When this mention appears, we can prepare for the pain and sorrow it presages, trusting that there is purpose and order, that our current suffering will pass. Okay, so this is more the cycle of death and rebirth. That's the lunar mention for today. So you're going to see if you have any incidents with this lunar mention, anything that sparks it up. And now when the moon is opposing Uranus, okay, it may come up in certain unusual ways. So it's okay to travel. It's okay to probably buy meat. You might do a talisman from protection from bad energies, or protection of the menstrual cycle. I don't know. Maybe that can work. It's a moon hour right now with the moon angular, so you might want to do this. But the moon is opposing Uranus, so you're gonna get unexpected results. And the moon is squaring Venus and Mars in Leo with squaring Lilith. I don't know. Okay, the moon is not clean here. You'll probably want the void of course moon to do these things. But yes, that's the video for today. I hope you kind of got the message about, the outer planets to inner planets. Why would a person consider outer planets to be insignificant? Why would a person be a lot more drawn to talk about the outer planets, and how that can relate to actually the chart of the astrologer? The difference between being a part of a very important event that is a part of a generational timeline and watching that on the news. Okay, I hope you kind of get that when it's generational and when you are the person who is very much personally a part of this generation. With Venus, if you are in any way thinking about relationships when you hear this, please scroll back to my Venus Wisdom on a Venus Day when I talked about Venus with the outer planets. Okay? I talked about this extensively, and to some degree, you can apply this whenever you have the ruler of the 7th or the 5th with an outer planet. Okay? Like for me, an out of bounds moon separating from me in conjunction to Uranus. Or Mercury opposing Pluto. Okay, it's not just my Venus opposing Pluto, Mercury, the ruler of the 7th and 4th, opposing Pluto. Those things will signify, that the personal is the political. Okay, and the personal is the political is not just like, this feminist notion. It can also be those couples that had, sometimes with Uranus in it, those couples that even are astrologers to some extent, or you think about the married couples in LGBTQ era where they allowed same-sex marriages. Okay, these couples are going to have probably Uranus somehow aspecting the 7th. And if it's a harsh aspect, you may find out that once they get to the point where same-sex marriage is allowed, the partnership can fall apart unless they have another cause for rebellion. Or if it's a trine, that they're just ending up being this, unusual couple, but in a very harmonious way, or they're turning into astrology even. Okay, astrology is a very remedial thing for a lot of other planets, especially for Uranus, and to some degree for Neptune. Okay, because astrology is Uranus. So, and to some degree, Neptune. Okay. My remediation for being hurt by a clinically trained psychologist was even when I was with him, I was talking about Pluto because I was learning about things and learning about, astrology, um, and the way things are being brought about. And I literally remember that I said, I was sitting in front of him and I said, it was before the eclipse on the moon. It was Rahu with in Cancer. And I said, I don't know anything about you, I don't know your chart, but I see something with children. I literally said that, oh my God. I see something with children. He was also doing things to do with children. Probably also offenses too, unfortunately. If you hurt me little, then why would he not hurt children that come in child body? So, because it's the same, you regress a person to the child state and then you hurt them. And so I see something with children, because he was about to get a promotion. You see something with children, but you need to understand all of the things with Pluto, all of the things that you are being, like all of your own traumas that come up, they will come up together. Okay. And he got a promotion to basically work with groups. And when you work with groups, if every patient triggers your traumas, then working with the group, all of these things are going to trigger all of your traumas together. Again, indeed, he went nuggets. I understand that there was a lot of fiscal worry around that because he was a family person. I don't know if he's hurting his child or not. I hope not. But I told him the children will speak. And they now they do, later do. And the thing is that pretty much exposed things, like that was pretty much exposing things when I was standing to it, and I was basically breaking the power struggle or breaking the power pattern that he imposed on his patients. Whatever he tried to do, he ended up working against himself so much so that, whatever you do, if you try to do psychic stuff to a person who literally has this lot of spirit 4 degrees away from Algol, so Algol will be the first planet I was called in to work with. That's a very uneasy return to sender. Okay? It's a very uneasy return to sender. Again, my Mars is in this nakshatra, is in this lunar mansion. It wants to do a win-win. It doesn't look for a victory over. It looks for, okay, how can we solve this issue? Obviously, you are abusive because you were hurt. Obviously, like, if you are my psychologist, and like, how do we grow with love? Literally, I ask that. But then if a person tries to overpower a person like me, they're just tying themselves up in their own ropes. Okay, it's like, you don't want to disempower me. Going to Pluto basically was a remedial aspect towards that, because I was like, I'm working with Pluto. I got I want to say baby Pluto. I got baby Pluto right here with my Mercury Orphic thingy. So I have Pluto all over. I'm working with Pluto now. Okay, it took time, but well, I remember I was looking at relationship. I said, I'm gonna have this Pluto hard aspects with anyone. Okay, so now I'm just working with Pluto, and that's very remedial. If you are this out, if you are the news, you're gonna know about this. So how much time do we have before we go Saturn? So 16 minutes. And yeah, so you turn to the out. When you turn to the out, if it's a power issue, turn to Pluto. Ask from Pluto, turn to Pluto, help people who were disempowered in similar fashion, okay? Or give charity to these people. If it's Neptune, help people who raise awareness, break the stigma around addiction, okay? raise awareness to missing people, missing children, support people who leak information, so whistleblowers, and so on and so forth. Uranus support rebellious people, support people who have been outcast in some way, shape, or form. This is also true to Aries. And support, people who study astrology in a way, or the technology of astrology, or tune into astrology. That's going to be somewhat remedial for you. With Uranus, it's like, hey, this is very unusual. Look, all learn about non-dynamic, non-linear system. So non-dynamic, so dynamic non-linear systems. Okay, kind of like chaos theory is one example. But you just look into studies of complexity, and so and that can be very remedial. This was what I was doing that before I tuned into astrology. And it's not like I'm a chaos theory expert. Like I wouldn't know to develop an equation, but you don't need that to study the theory and to tune into that. And that is very much balancing for the nervous system. At least I found it with Aquarius in my 12th house. So yeah. Also, what I noticed, you may be more associating between outer planets and them as rulers of something when you are targeted by them. Okay? You may associate Uranus to Aquarius way more if Uranus touches on your personal planets. It doesn't mean that it's right or wrong. Okay, you may associate Neptune with Pisces way more if it's on your ascendant, like mine right now in transit. Or you may associate Pluto with Scorpio a bit more. Okay, if you have Pluto to Mars, or you have Pluto to any personal, Pluto to the moon even. Okay, you might associate it as like, okay, this is very scorpionic. You're gonna see that. You're gonna see that. It doesn't mean that it's right or wrong. It just means that there's a tendency to experience the world in this way and to see things in this manner. So that's for the outer planets, inner planets video, and how we may relate to them. And what you also need to understand, that outer planets are outer planets because they move so slowly. They are so far, and they seem to move so slowly around the ecliptic, which is how we see them as like they're surrounding us, right? We don't see us turning. So their movement relative to ours is so slow that every transit can take years. Okay? This is why if you broke up with your ex and it's a personal planet issue, it can be about 2 to 3 weeks, sometime up to 2 years of a cycle, unless it's something that's touched by an outer planet, and then you get the Venus 8-year cycle. You get the the Mars synodic cycle, which I don't know how long it lasts, or you get the synodic cycles with the outer planet affecting you alongside the Venus cycle. Now with Venus applying to be retrograde, you might want to watch all the people that talk. There is Balas who talks about Venus cycles. It's time to kind of come back to her teachings. There was the astrology podcast. I don't even need to tell you probably know that. There was an episode about Venus retrograde, I think, with Nick Dagan-Best and now I call him Pawn Astro. Now you're Pawn Astro. And it's not even your nickname on Twitter. Now, yeah. This is funny. Because that was the guy I was still twittering for their posts in the beginning. Anyway, so I remember now Pawn Astro. Patrick Watson, thank you. My memory is weird. I wanted to do Thomas Jefferson's chart. Okay, it's later event. So yeah. That is also the thing. And so if you have a person that's now, especially now, if you have a person that has broken up from someone a decade ago and they're still talking about this, it's know that they're not overreacting. They had an outer planet to inner planet aspect. And so the personal is the political, is something of the zeitgeist. Okay, so to me, if it's something that happened in 2007, I didn't even understand what was happening because I felt sexually violated, but with energy. And I'm like, the person was just probably drunk. And then like he tried to figure what he did wrong. He said, maybe I misled you. He said, no, you raped me, which of course is very difficult to say to a person. And lo and behold, we're in 2023 talking about astral projection, talking about people being empath sensitive to the energy of other people, talking also about gaslighting. Okay, I'm not saying that it was like this on purpose, but sometimes you study or you communicate in a certain way that either you're not aware of, or and then you're being seen as narcissistic, or because of trauma, then you do have like something, narcissistic. It's not, it happens to people, we're human. But the information that was needed to tend to this was the whole Pluto cycle going from Sagittarius, who was my midheaven, through Capricorn, okay, and into Aquarius. And it's like, of course, it was not just a 2 weeks thing, because the issues that were brought about had to do with a lot of the teachings that I would later teach. Okay, so whether it's abusive communication or energy, energy boundaries regarding sexuality, and things that even now I'm learning to know. Until I didn't see, I was looking of how to grow garlic and the garlic spiritual effects. And then there was this African woman holding a clove of garlic and say, you put this like this, you shower with this, and you put this under your bed, and this, you ask from this, and you ask from God to take your spiritual partner and to have him not rape you anymore. And I'm like, like in Western society, they try to give beta blockers to people who even, like, it's something you cannot even talk about because people will think you're psychotic. Okay, so of course it took a lot of time to process these things because it was cross-cultural. And so one of the things that can happen to people with this effect, Uranus is not as horrid as Pluto and Neptune in this case, but because it's just quicker. I mean, I love Pluto, but it is a long transit. When you don't know the energies, then I didn't know astrology. So with Uranus here, it can be that somebody breaks up with someone and then they take more time than usual to process it. Or an unusual relationship is formed or unusual breakup is formed. And it takes more time to process it because it's an outer planet. And even the person themselves says, why don't I get over it? Why didn't I get over it? Why didn't I get over this person? It's not this person. There's something that you're learning that has to do with the spirit of a generation. And that takes time. Okay? One of the things, if I go to my Me Too era, so there was, when I wrote my satire, then the offender thought I want money from him. I said, I don't want money from you. I want change. This is also why I didn't sue. Like, I'm not looking for money from you. Like, why would I look? You're a private person. Why would I want, your money? It's not a scheme to get rich. I want to change. I want to be able to make my money. I make a life, I'll make a living. Okay? And they thought I wanted money from them. And when, and eventually I've learned more and more about how important it is for every person to have their own land. And I remember I even saw a post of someone who was marrying a man, and she was in debt. She was working, but she was in debt, and the man had a lot of wealth. And I remember thinking about this, traditionally the man gives something called Nadunya. I think also in Islam, I think he gives her land. In Judaism, he is supposed to give money. It's called Nadunya. It's like the man is buying the woman. And I'm like, but in Islam, it is so that the man is not allowed to know what is the bank account details of the woman. She has to have her own bank details. And you think, in Judaism, it's like, what is the man buying the woman? It's terrible. But when you think about it in Islam, what is the original thing? Not what people made of it. The thing is that the woman has her own financial ability to raise her children, even if she was alone. She has land, she has house. He has no right to know about any of this. If he divorces her, if he abandons her, if he whatnot, then she can have the money to grow her children. Okay, because she didn't have the ability to do this on herself. Now we're in an age where we want the relationship to be founded on healthy connection. We must have, each person must have their own individual wealth. This must be accessible. So if I'm going to work with you and you are my boss and my income depends on you and you have connections, how can I, like, even if I wanted to have, let's say you were not married and you were not part of this human trafficking, let's say you were just an honest person who is interested in me, okay, I could not say yes to you because I cannot have my own wealth, because I cannot work. If I'm working with you right now, it means I have to work in another place, but it means that if I say no to you, there are implications to that. And now I cannot even say yes to you. Okay, that was the point. But that took a lot of time to understand what is going on, what is being triggered, like, because it brings up all, from my side, it brings out all the outer planets. This my chart. Okay? It's not even the other person, my chart. And so, of course, that there's this tremendous fear. And when you find out that it's not just tremendous fear, but this person was also, whether he was aware of it or not, becoming like the human traffickers that he was being supported by in academia, then you get that this, the human trafficking aspect, I only discovered in 2022, 2023. I only named it human trafficking then, because it was like, we didn't have a name for it, because it's not in our lexicon. You go to work, you go to work. You don't think about these things when you go to work. It's just trying to make a living and do something you're passionate about and get paid. So yeah, that is another way the outer planets can appear. And I think we're getting very close to Saturn now, probably already in Saturn. No, so I'm going to leave it at that and publish it right now and say bye-bye.